All right, let's get right into it. We talk a lot about climate change, but what does that actually look like on a map of the world? Today, we're going to dig into the science of how global warming is literally redrawing the lines of our planet's great natural regions.
So, I want you to think about the Earth as a collection of huge, distinct neighborhoods. You've got the tropical rainforests, the icy tundra. Each one has its own unique vibe, its own set of rules. But what happens when the borders of those neighborhoods start to get fuzzy, or even start moving altogether? That's really the big question we're tackling here.
So, to really wrap our heads around this whole thing, we first need to get on the same page with the language scientists use to even talk about these global neighborhoods.
Okay, so the official term for one of these neighborhoods is a biome. It's basically a giant geographical area that's defined by two main things: its specific climate, temperature, how much rain it gets, and the special plants and animals that have adapted to live right there.
Now, you might be thinking, wait a second, isn't that just an ecosystem? And that's a really good question, because it's easy to get them mixed up. The biggest difference is just scale. A biome is the huge, big picture view defined by climate. But inside just one of those biomes, you could have thousands of different ecosystems. A single river, the forest floor, even a little pond. Each one is a smaller community where life is interacting with its local environment.
To make this really hit home, let's just look at one example, the taiga. You might know it as the boreal forest. This thing is the perfect case study. It is the single largest land biome on the planet, wrapping all the way around the northern part of the globe. It's all about cold weather and those pine and spruce trees. But get this, and this is so important, the taiga stores more carbon than all the temperate and tropical forests in the world combined. So yeah, it's a massive player in our planet's climate, which is why the idea of its borders shrinking is, well, a pretty big deal.
Okay, so if you're going to map these huge biomes and try to figure out how they're changing, you need a consistent way to do it. You basically need a recipe book for climates.
And that's the real challenge, right? I mean, how on earth do you take something as complicated and huge as a biome and classify it so precisely that you can actually track how it changes over time and even predict where it's headed?
Well, the answer comes from this classic scientific tool called the Köppen-Geiger classification system. It's been around for more than a century, and it really is like that climate recipe book we were talking about. It gives scientists a really precise, numbers-based way to define any climate zone anywhere on Earth.
And the recipe itself is actually super straightforward. For any place you pick, you just take its average monthly temperature and its average monthly precipitation. You run those two numbers through a specific set of rules and thresholds, and boom, out comes a precise classification that tells you if you're standing in a hot desert, a tropical rainforest, or a polar tundra. All right, so we've got our definitions, we've got our recipe book. Now we get to the main event. What happens when you use this classic system to map out our planet's future?
This is where it gets really interesting. Researchers took this tried-and-true Köppen-Geiger system and paired it up with the most powerful, cutting-edge climate models we have today, the CMIP-6 models. And by doing that, they could literally map out what the world's biomes look like under different levels of warming. Okay, so this is our baseline. This is what the world's biomes looked like before the really rapid period of global warming kicked in. Think of it as our before picture. I want you to look closely at the northern hemisphere. See all that purple and blue? Those are the huge polar, tundra, and boreal forest biomes. Now keep your eye on them as we start to turn up the heat.
And here we go. This is a world with 1.5 degrees Celsius of warming. That's the main goal of the Paris Agreement. You can already see the change. Just look at those northern regions in North America and Eurasia. The blues and purples are already starting to shrink back as the warmer temperate zones, those greens and yellows, begin to creep north.
Now jump to 2 degrees. That slow creep we just saw? It's turning into a march. It's only another 0.5 degree, but notice how much faster the shift is. The subarctic and tundra biomes are in a serious retreat now, as the climates that used to be in the middle of the continents start pushing their way up toward the poles.
And here is the 4-degree scenario. And wow, this isn't just a shift anymore, it is a total reorganization of the planet. The world's natural neighborhoods have been completely redrawn. The tropical and desert zones, the yellows and reds, are now taking over massive parts of the globe. And those huge cold biomes we started with, they're now just a little fringe at the very top of the world.
And honestly, this quote from the researchers themselves just nails what we've just seen on those maps. The pattern is crystal clear, and it's almost all going in one direction, from colder, wetter climates to hotter, drier ones.
So, seeing the maps is one thing, But what does this all mean in actual concrete numbers? What really is the price of that extra half a degree of warming between 1.5 and 2?
The researchers dug into the data and they found this really consistent rule. No matter how they ran the models, a clear pattern popped out. For every single degree Celsius of global warming, about 12% of the Earth's land is projected to change its fundamental biome type. 12% for every degree.
So what does that actually mean for us? Well, when you apply that math to the difference between 1.5 and 2 degrees, you get this absolutely staggering number, 7 million square kilometers. That is the amount of land that would be saved from a major biome shift if we can manage to stop warming at 1.5 degrees instead of letting it go to 2. To put that in perspective, that's an area larger than the entire Amazon rainforest.
And this is what really brings it all home. All of a sudden, that half a degree target isn't just some abstract number for politicians to debate. It's a direct, physical measurement of how much of our planet's basic geography we can actually save.
So, we have the maps and we have the numbers. But that leads us to the last and maybe the most important question of all. What does this kind of change really mean for the life on the ground? We've seen how scientists can draw these new maps and how they can calculate these huge areas that are in flux. But a biome isn't just a color on a map, right? It's a living, breathing system. So what happens when its entire foundation, its climate, gets pulled right out from under it?
And that is the question this research really leaves us with. When the climate recipe that has defined a place for thousands and thousands of years gets completely changed, what happens to the forests, the animals, the entire web of life that was perfectly built for the old rules? That's the next chapter in this story.